Guide to Discipline Children with Autism. Disclaimer. This video is a collective between our personal experience and information extracted from many credible sources that are deemed relevant and important for parents. The contents and opinions in this video should not be taken as professional advice nor treatments. Always consult with your child's behavioral therapist/specialist and/or doctors for advice. We simply gather and provide a readout of the information. Before we start, please support our effort in gather information to parents and creating learning contents for autistic children. Simply subscribe our channel and like our Facebook page. Thank you so much. Let us get started. Guide to Discipline Children with Autism. Children need discipline not only for their own benefit but also for their enjoyment and general well-being. As important as wholesome food, physical and mental activities, love, and other fundamental necessities are for a child's healthy development, discipline is as essential. Children that lack discipline lack the abilities to deal with relationships and obstacles in life, including self-control, respect for others, and peer cooperation. Parents of autistic children are facing much tougher challenges because many children with autism find it difficult to understand nonverbal social communication cues such as facial expression. It may require a lot of effort and patience to rectify the problematic and undesirable behaviors that children with autism spectrum condition frequently exhibit. Understanding why undesirable behaviors happen in the first place is the first step in changing them. It's crucial to determine whether the child is simply acting out or whether the behavior is connected to their autism diagnosis. Each child is different, and depending on where your child falls on the autism spectrum, typical discipline methods may not always work because your child may find it difficult to understand the consequences of their actions or handle harsh reprimands. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use any discipline at all. While there are certainly challenges, discipline should not be used to punish, but rather instill valuable lessons that establish healthy limits, build strong foundation, and make clear expectations for appropriate and desired behaviors. It's crucial to realize right away that ABA does not focus on or function as a system of discipline. Instead, ABA focuses on figuring out the reasons behind undesirable behaviors and how to provide your child the resources they need to begin selecting preferable behaviors. This article will share some safe, effective, and compassionate strategies for how to discipline a child on the autism spectrum. Educate yourself of your child's condition. Before you fully comprehend how to discipline a child on the autism spectrum, you will need to research and study your child's autistic condition. Make sure you are giving your child reasonable expectations by doing some research on the issues. Certain habits can't always be disciplined away by a parent. Instead, they need to be assessed by a specialist. For instance, self-stimulation in autistic children frequently manifests as spinning, flapping of the hands, etc. Punishing children for engaging in these actions could actually have the opposite effect of what you intended by helping them control their emotions. Remember that autism exists on a spectrum, meaning every child will experience different symptoms in different ways. It's a good idea to speak with other parents whose children have autism. You will get a better idea of how to set expectations, especially if you speak with a parent whose child has symptoms similar to yours. Facebook support groups is a great resource for this. Is it autism or just bad behavior? Determine whether your child is misbehaving or whether the behavior you are observing is a result of their autism. As you may expect, choosing the right disciplinary strategy depends on knowing what caused the actions. You can make an accurate assessment using two tools. Antecedent-Behavior-Consequence Chart. Also known as the ABC chart, this tool can provide a better understanding about the events surrounding a child's behavior. Each time an undesired behavior occurs, you must write down the ABCs of that specific behavior. Antecedent: the events that occurred before the behavior happened. Behavior: your child's response to the antecedent. Consequence: what happened after the behavior to either encourage/hinder a repeat of the situation. The goal is to observe the same behavior repeatedly to look for patterns, then come up with a strategy to alter the antecedent and/or consequence to ensure that the undesirable behavior is eliminated. This tool can also help you decide whether your child is acting out of character or just being a child by having sensory sensitivities as the cause of the antecedent and/or consequence. The Iceberg Model. It is quite fascinating if this method of behavior analysis is new to you. This hypothesis contends that the negative behaviors we observe in our kids are merely the tip of a much larger iceberg. The causes of our child's actions are said to reside below the surface, and as only 10% of an iceberg is visible to the naked eye, we must discover a means to view and comprehend these drivers before change can take place. When it comes to parenting a child with autism, using an ABC chart to chronicle the events that happen before and after your child's behaviors and making a conscious effort to delve deeper into the iceberg of her behaviors can be life-changing. Naturally, seeing behaviors just once will not be sufficient. While this can be time-consuming and difficult, you will be shocked at all the things you will discover about your child along the road. You must observe and document a single conduct numerous times before you can tell if it is autism or just bad behavior. Making connections with and understanding other behaviors may help you discover strategies to prevent tantrums and meltdowns before they start. Refer to our article on understanding autism meltdowns. Discipline strategies. Be calm. It is especially important to remain calm and neutral when disciplining an autistic child who struggles with communications, nonverbal cues, or sensory overloads. Refrain from being too reactive to the undesired behaviors. It's likely that what you perceive as disrespectful behavior is actually your child's response to physical discomfort or an inability to express legitimate needs clearly. These misunderstandings may reduce the effectiveness of conventional punishment methods. Frustratingly, your child might not comprehend the consequences of their conduct. However, you should avoid using any forms of discipline that can harm your child, such as physical or verbal punishment. Some autistic kids may persist in an undesirable behavior to seek your attention. You don't stay calm, your child might provoke your susceptibilities, which makes them want to continue doing it because they will get a reaction from you. This is particularly difficult and you're in the moment and potentially under stress yourself. However, remaining calm is crucial for your and your child's well-being. Be consistent. Most children with autism respond well to structured discipline, possibly as a result of their desire for consistency and routine. Consistent discipline can also alleviate some of your child's anxiety, a common characteristic of autism. Whether a behavior is desirable or undesirable, it must happen regularly in order to become a habit. Be consistent, and over time they will learn what is and is not acceptable, leading to change. Be strong and hold out the rewards, desired toys or requests until appropriate behaviors are followed. Maintain your course. Understanding your child's physiological needs. Many children with autism have difficulty processing everyday sensory. Some of them may overreact or hyperreact, while others may underreact or hyperreact. As a result, effort to satisfy your child's sensory needs may be the root of the undesirable behavior. Instead of enforcing discipline in these circumstances, it may be preferable to consider the sensory inputs that are generating the behavior and adjust the environment. It's also important to keep in mind that loud noises can be extremely painful to a child with autism, and while raising your voice in frustration implies your disapproval, but your child might not be able to properly connect it with the behavior they were engaging in before it occurred. Your child may be so caught up in trying to cope with the sensory overload of your voice or from the event that caused of their reaction. Redirect and replace. Redirection is a classic form of discipline, one that works especially well with younger children who might not necessarily understand or listen to reason and logic. Redirection is taking an emotionally charged situation and channel elsewhere or redirect it. When it is possible to redirect the child's undesired behaviors and replace with more appropriate ones, such as asking your child to tap you when they need attention instead of hitting you. Here is a personal example. I calmly approached my son and held his hand while I reached down and picked up the remote control after he purposefully pushed it off the table. I asked him to kiss the remote and carefully place it back on the table. Before placing it back, I took his other hand to caress the remote and ask him to apologize and promise never to do that again to the remote. Since none of redirection was for me, he was more likely to direct his frustration to the remote again. Not long after, when he was frustrated, he pushed the remote down again. I simply switched the TV off, placed the remote out of reach, and walked to the kitchen. He was immediately subject to the consequences of his actions, and as I was leaving, he had no time to argue. Any unfavorable response at that point would reinforce the undesirable conduct and cause a new episode. Positive reinforcement. Rewarding your child for appropriate behaviors is a key component of positive reinforcement strategies. Positive reinforcement-based methods of discipline work better with autistic children. When using positive reinforcement techniques, you point out the things your child is doing well and compliment or reward them. Anything from a toy, a sticker, a favorite activity, to praise and attention can be used as a reward. It will encourage your child to continue behaving properly by assisting them in connecting the desired conduct with a satisfying result. According to research, discipline methods that employ positive reinforcement strategies are effective with autistic children. Things to consider. The reward or compliment for your child's good behavior must be concrete and timely in order to be successful. Be sure to express the behavior trait you want to foster in the child, for instance, thank you for speaking quietly in the grocery store. If your child struggles to express themselves verbally, you may need to modify your communication method, use straightforward language, and rely more on visual aids. Remember that some autistic children don't take praise well. For example, a child who frequently withdraws themselves from others won't feel inspired to act in a particular way only to please others. Depending on your child's preferences, you can use visual schedules, token boards, or sticker charts as a form of positive reinforcement. These tools will convey your expectations more clearly and at the same time serve as a visual record of their progress. A traditional sticker chart, where kids can accumulate stickers for good behavior and eventually earn a prize for a particular number of stickers, might inspire some children. For example, my son has a weekly goal of earning 10 A's because we can exchange that for $2. However, a lot of autistic children, especially young ones, respond to rewards and positive reinforcement that come more quickly and are related to the behavior. Therefore, start out with immediate rewards and slowly build up to longer and more significant rewards to develop being patient. Negative reinforcement. Another successful method of correcting autistic children, particularly those who have serious behavioral problems, is negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement, which should not be confused with punishment, is the process of eliminating an undesirable factor from the environment in order to encourage the desired behavior. For example, my son is scared of dogs and would turn his bike around screaming while riding around the neighborhood. I can decide to ride just the areas where there are not many people walking their dogs. However, that does not address the undesired behavior. Negative reinforcement method suggests that I gear him up with sunglasses and boots with the claims that with sunglasses, the dogs won't see him and the boots would prevent the dogs from any possibility of biting him. With this approach, he can calmly ride past the dogs without any of prior behaviors. Similar approach can be implemented with sensitive to loud sounds. Rather avoiding areas with high level of noise, we equip the child with noise-canceling headphones. Because it eliminates the aversive stimulus, or the item your child is attempting to avoid, this type of negative reinforcement is very effective. Things to consider. The child who exhibits unwelcome behavior shouldn't be given anything in return. For instance, you shouldn't give in to your child's demands for electronics only to put a halt to the behavior. Negative reinforcement used improperly might reinforce undesirable behavior. When using negative reinforcement strategies, consistency is crucial. To put it another way, it's critical to execute your plan. Children with autism frequently prefer rigid discipline, and they do significantly better in situations where the outcome is predictable. First and then chart. A first and then chart is a visual representation of what you want your child must do first, and what will, then, come after. The idea is to make the first task less desirable and to follow it up with some sort of reward, and this is an excellent tool to help correct behavioral issues with autism. For example, if your child consistently refuses to schoolwork, the first and then chart might look like this. First, do schoolwork for 45 minutes and then, play on electronic device for 15 minutes. This method works really well if your child has specific interests. You can use it to your advantage when trying to discipline your child, making the interests such as Legos or iPad usage as the rewards. Develop a system where your child would earn minutes through desirable behaviors. If well behaved at supermarket, then a 5-minute sticker would be earned. You can also use that as consequences. If poorly behave at dinner table, then a 5-minute sticker would be lost. I personally use the letter grade A's as first and then or rewards and consequences system. My son will get $2 if he earns 10 A's for the week. However, depending on the severity of any persistently undesirable behaviors on the day, he can lose part of his grades. He is very protective of his weekly A's and his hard-earned money, which is why this has worked out so well with him. Be positive. Positivity inspires positive actions. The majority of autistic children appreciate receiving praises, so if you do, your child will desire to act well in the future. Remember that those who prefer to withdraw from others might not respond. You can assist your child in learning how to react to compliments because they probably aren't too motivated or interested in doing things to please other people. Remind your child of the rewards they can obtain for achieving their goals to encourage them. When your child exhibits good conduct, compliment them and be sure to specify what you are complimenting them on. Children can better learn good and inappropriate behavior by using a technique known as descriptive praising. For example, thank you for sharing your toy with your sister when she asked. You can also praise children for their efforts, not just the final result. Establish a meditation area. You place a mat or chair in this location, preferably in a corner with no direct view of the TV or people, and you set a timer. Take the child to this location, have them sit down, and set the timer for 5 minutes if any undesirable behaviors cannot be corrected or replaced. You sit with your child in this place and only breathe deeply for a long time. Your child won't be able to pick up on your negative feelings to feed their frustration and will soon understand the repercussions of earlier undesirable behavior. Maintain a consistent enforcement of the timer.